On January 15, 2026, investigative reporter John Simon released a chilling exposé about a secret society operating within the United States. This group, deeply embedded in both religious and political circles, is accused of orchestrating a silent coup d'état. Simon's report suggests that this society manipulates faith and power, blurring the lines between church and state. The story begins with Simon's own experience, setting the stage for a tale of suffering, manipulation, and the dangerous intersection of religion and governance. As we dive deeper, we'll uncover how biblical narratives are weaponized for control. Simon's report cleverly plays with the word skin, referencing everything from golf games to classic films and even notorious figures like E. Jane. But at its core, skin takes on a biblical meaning, drawing from Job 2:4 skin for skin. This phrase questions whether faith can withstand intense suffering. In the biblical story, Job's faith is tested through unimaginable loss and pain. Simon believes this very template has been used against him, turning his life into a modern-day trial by ordeal. The symbolism of skin becomes a thread connecting personal suffering to larger societal manipulation. In the book of Job, Satan is permitted to test Job's faith by inflicting suffering, but not taking his life. Simon draws a direct parallel, claiming that a secret society has used him as a living experiment, echoing Job's ordeal. Since 2001, Simon alleges he has been forced into the role of a Christian martyr, enduring loss and hardship as a test of faith. This suffering, he argues, is not just personal, but is orchestrated by those seeking to validate religious texts through real-world pain. The echoes of Job's story reverberate through Simon's life, making his ordeal both ancient and alarmingly current. Simon's account details the devastating losses he's endured, his wealth, his children, and the dream of a thriving family and business. He claims these were taken from him without cause, as part of a calculated effort by the secret society to use him as a statistical marker for national tragedies like the 9/11 attacks. The pain is not just emotional but deeply personal, as Simon describes being transformed from a successful individual into a symbol of suffering. His story is a stark reminder of how personal lives can be shattered by forces far beyond their control. According to Simon, his suffering is not accidental but a deliberate act by religious and political organizations. He claims to have been made a martyr, enduring torture and peonage for decades. Now at 64, Simon's life is defined by the relentless pressure of being a living test case for biblical principles. This manipulation, he argues, is driven by an insatiable appetite within certain Christian sects to prove the validity of their scriptures through real human suffering. The boundaries between faith, governance, and personal rights become dangerously blurred in this ongoing ordeal. Simon's report highlights the powerful influence of religious organizations within American politics. He argues that these groups are not just spiritual communities, but active participants in shaping laws and policies. Their involvement, according to Simon, has enabled abuses like his own to go unchecked, as social laws fail to protect individuals from religiously motivated harm. The separation of church and state, a foundational principle of American democracy, is called into question. Simon's experience becomes a case study in the dangers of allowing religious doctrine to override constitutional rights. Simon accuses Christian associates within this secret society of hypocrisy, claiming they prioritize religious structure over constitutional rights. He asserts that these groups operate without oversight, using their influence to bypass social laws and enforce their own agenda. This, he says, is evident in the lack of protection for individuals like himself, who become targets of religiously motivated abuse. The report paints a picture of a society where religious power can override the very laws meant to protect its citizens, exposing a deep and troubling hypocrisy at the heart of American governance. Simon draws connections between his own suffering and a series of infamous American crimes, including the murders of Elizabeth Short and Sharon Tate, the Oklahoma City bombing, and the actions of serial killers like Ted Bundy and E. Jane. He suggests that these acts of brutality are not isolated incidents, but part of a broader pattern of ritual sacrifice and domestic terrorism, justified by religious texts. By linking his experience to these historical events, Simon argues that the abuse of religious power has deep and violent roots in American history. According to Simon, the secret society uses the 24 books of the Hebrew Bible and 66 books of the Christian Bible as blueprints for ritual sacrifices and tests of faith. He claims that these rituals are designed to verify the truth of religious writings, often at the expense of innocent lives. This alleged practice, Simon argues, gives the society both power and safe harbor, allowing them to operate without fear of legal consequences. The blending of ancient scripture with modern governance creates a dangerous environment where faith is weaponized for control. Simon's allegations go further, accusing the secret society of perpetrating acts of domestic terrorism under the guise of religious testing. He claims that individuals like himself become targets for these acts, suffering violence and loss as part of a larger agenda. The use of biblical verses as justification for such actions, Simon argues, is a perversion of faith and a violation of basic human rights. His report calls attention to the urgent need for oversight and accountability in the intersection of religion and state power. The core of Simon's argument is that ancient religious texts are being used to circumvent modern laws and rights. He describes this as earth-shattering, highlighting the profound implications for American society. If a verse written thousands of years ago can override the rights of a modern citizen, Simon warns, then the very foundation of American democracy is at risk. His story becomes a warning about the dangers of allowing faith to supersede law, and the need to protect individual rights against religious overreach. Simon's report concludes with a powerful indictment of American society, calling out the hypocrisy of a nation that claims to separate church and state, while allowing religious power to dictate law and policy. He argues that his own suffering is proof of this hypocrisy, and that the abuse of religious authority is a threat to the very idea of America. The report ends with a call for awareness and change, urging viewers to recognize the dangers of unchecked religious influence in public life. Throughout the report, Simon's voice is deeply personal and urgent. He shares not just facts, but the emotional toll of years spent as a target of secretive power. His testimony is a reminder that behind every headline and historical event, there are real people whose lives are forever changed. Simon's willingness to speak out despite the risks adds a human dimension to the broader issues of faith, power, and justice. His story challenges us to consider the cost of silence and the importance of bearing witness. Simon's report invites us to reflect on the lessons of history. From biblical times to the present, the struggle between faith and law has shaped societies and defined destinies. The dangers of unchecked power, whether religious or political, are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. By examining Simon's experience, we gain insight into the ongoing battle for justice, accountability, and the protection of individual rights. History, Simon suggests, is not just a record of the past but a warning for the future. In the final analysis, Simon's investigative report is a call for greater oversight and accountability. He urges society to recognize the dangers of secret societies and the unchecked influence of religious organizations in politics. Protecting individual rights, he argues, requires vigilance and a renewed commitment to the principles of justice and equality. Simon's story is both a cautionary tale and a rallying cry, reminding us that the fight for freedom and fairness is never truly over. The challenge now is to ensure that no one else suffers as he has.